I was approached by Ronnie, who had seen Riyadh as a young comedian, and basically, I guess, had seen the potential in him and maybe the story of a Muslim comedian, and that was where we started with just the slimmest of premises. And I guess it just took a very long time to try and figure out the right context to tell the story. Riyadh in the movie is actually a qualified doctor. So he studied medicine for 7 or 8 years before then deciding to be a comedian. Can you imagine his parents? So we didn't know where to start, and we started there. You know, we wrote quite an autobiographical script about a guy who was studying medicine and had developed this thing with comedy, and sort of realized that didn't really work, and the stakes were all wrong because he kept thinking, well, just be a doctor, it's better. And so we went through this really sort of bumpy ride of almost kind of developing some ideas and then giving up on it. And you know, films have these funny ways of sort of I experienced it with this, where the story sort of reveals itself to you rather than the other way around. And in fact, the fact that it took so long was really a great thing, because we weren't in any hurry. You know, we'd made films before, and we kind of really wanted it to be right. So we just were relaxed and kind of just kept developing it. But yeah, it's because of the Muslim community in South Africa being sort of, I guess, cautious about what we were doing. We really had to get the textures of it right, and I guess the tone right. So even when we did start getting somewhere with the story, we then had to go on a whole nother process to really work with people and try and understand the nuances of what we were doing. And I worked with quite a lot of different people who sort of said, you know, take that out. That would never happen. Forget about that. That's a you know, inflammatory. Don't do that. So that we could just try and find, I guess, an overall tone that was accessible to the audience. I think that's probably why it took so long. Well, yeah, I guess that's the journey we're on now, is trying to see what interest in is it from the rest of the world. You know, whether it touches a chord with people outside of South Africa, which I think we're starting to realize it does, and whether there's any way of getting it here. We'll get it here in some form or another, you know. We just don't know what that is yet. But I also think that, just to come back to your original point, I mean, I sort of come from a theatre background, and I also come from an improvisational background. So for me, working with actors and allowing them to, so Riyadh and Joey and Nick or whoever sort of, you know, brought their own vernacular with them. And some of the stuff was, I mean, obviously we cut a lot out of it, but some of the stuff they were making jokes, I just didn't get at all, you know. But they were sort of cracking themselves up about stuff that I was going, guys, I don't see what's funny, which was an amazing sort of thing, because it was set about 10 minutes away from where I live, you know. So that was also, it's a very nice way to get actors to bring themselves and their vernacular when you work, because sometimes I can't write that. I don't know what it is.
Just to add something to what Craig was saying about working with a group of actors and working from an improvisational point of view. I mean, I'm an actor that I actually like a script, because I like a pathway, a railroad, or at least a guidance, a compass, if you like. And the script, when I first read it, had all of those indicators. And my kind of intervention, if you like, was when Craig offered it to me. It had never happened before, that you get a chance to actually have an influence on how a script, well, a character evolves. I mean, I didn't actually have any addition to the writing, but the ideas that Craig and I talked about, and you know, where this character of the father was coming from. the fact that the character came out to be what he is in due large part to the fact that Craig was so open to the kind of collaboration that produced it. Yes, I guess the most personal thing was the fact when Craig approached me and I'd read the script, it was such a tender story, and from a purely personal point of view, it was the first time I'd worked back in South Africa for 37 years, having been away for 37 years. So all these things collided very happily to provide that opportunity. So from a personal point of view, yes, it was the most extraordinary opportunity to do something of quality. Because I guess as an actor, you're always looking for something that you can take back. And I know South Africa, having been away from it for such a long time, from my point of view, it was a delicate little journey. But I was given a massive amount of support by the production company, Craig, Ronnie, Robbie Thorpe. I felt immediately at home. And also because Craig and I had a long relationship, emailing each other while I was on tour in America with another theatre piece, with various drafts coming in and me adding my tuppence worth. So that by the time I arrived in Johannesburg to shoot the film, we kind of hit the ground running, which was lovely.
Yeah, at one point I phoned Vincent and I said, look, I need to come to London to do a bit of work with you on the latest draft. And I was hoping he'd say, well, do you want to come stay at my house? Because I didn't have any money to stay anywhere else. So, and he did. So I went and saw him in this play, and then I went back to his house, and it sort of seemed like the most natural thing in the world, even though I didn't really know him that well. And then I was speaking to a friend of mine the next morning, and he said, where are you? And I said, I'm staying at Vincent's house. He said, you're actually staying in his house? I said, yeah. And was it just then that I sort of, this is a bit odd. I mean, I hardly know him, and I'm staying in his house. But that was kind of... it was kind of the way we were, you know. We sort of have this theatrical background together, I guess. And from the first time we met, we just were like, you know. And I was sort of saying the script was half of what it ended up being. And I was sort of saying, look, I'm going to give you the script, but just forget about the script. Okay, here's the story. You know, this is what we're trying to do, and I haven't quite cracked it. And I need you. I need your help. You know. And he read it, and then we started these conversations, which I can promise you, and that's why it's an interesting thing about the collaboration of film, is that there's absolutely no ways that character would have been what it became were it not for him. Were it not for an actor bringing their own experience, his own experiences from the Kumars, from the Indian community in London, just from his own life experience, to blow some air into that character which desperately needed it at that stage. It wasn't something that we were so aware of until the film got released. And then we realized that it did have this amazing sort of kind of, people felt proud of it, you know, even though it wasn't necessarily about them and their community. There was a kind of a pride, a South African sort of pride, and I think maybe what it is that it's just about a community and maybe an ability for people to see themselves or aspects of their own family in that community, and because it's not their community, to somehow feel a little bit closer to the community that was being depicted. A lot of people sort of said things like what they, and I'm talking about non-Muslim, non-Indian people, what they really liked about it was it sort of started off about a film about a Muslim family, and 10 minutes into the film was just a film about a family. And I think in terms of some of the issues around portrayal of Muslims and negative stereotyping and that sort of thing, it became a very positive thing to it was just a story about a family. But it did have that kind of effect, which was really interesting to us. Unintended in some ways.